Well, joining me now to look at the fortunes and the failings of the Egyptian economy is Nassef Sawiris, who is CEO and Chairman of Orascom. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Can I begin by asking you a little bit about what the feeling is like in Egypt now in terms of the stability and looking to the future?
I think the opening of the stock market was a major milestone after the creation of the second government, which has clearly a much bigger mandate than the first government and the first prime minister. This is a prime minister that was actually in Tahrir Square, so that gives it a lot of credibility and the sense of a popular mandate. We were quite impressed by the strong volume that occurred on, especially yesterday on the Cairo Stock Exchange, which bodes well for the sense of establishing some kind of trough for the Egyptian stock market.
Indeed. I mean, there was always going to be a sell-off, I guess, when it opened again. Are you expecting, are you hoping that next week you're going to see more stability?
I think the trading, several of the stocks are traded on the London Stock Exchange in GDRs. Today was a good day, and there's a sense of stability that this is about the range that the Egyptian market is stabilizing at.
And do you think that the bourse should have opened sooner? I mean, it was a very difficult time, wasn't it?
Absolutely. You don't delay the outcome of a result by not just taking the patient's temperature.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. I know you've got a new person in charge of the stock exchange in Egypt. You've got new rules in place at the moment that are temporary. How do you see it going forward? Are those rules going to remain? Is it going to be tighter in terms of in terms of the policy there going forward?
We actually don't have a new person. The person who's in charge of the Cairo Stock Exchange is quite familiar with the situation. He's been head of the Egyptian custody system. He's a very credible person, and he's made it very clear when he opened the stock market that this will not occur again on his watch.
Okay.
So that he acknowledges that the need for having liquidity for the investors.
Now, there has been concern as well that there should be some financial support for the brokerages in Egypt. Is the government able to step in and help, or will that be necessary?
I think that's already been done, and it's no longer needed. The brokerages have survived the first pressures of the first day, and they're now active and trading, and there are enough buyers and sellers to keep the brokerages working.
Now, from your own point of view, for construction, it's obviously going to be a bit of a difficult time going through this transition period, and yet you actually won some contracts during the transition. Are you comfortable that the contracts that you had before will be honoured, and how is it going to affect your bottom line going forward?
Actually, surprisingly, every time the region had a major crisis or a war, or Egypt even post the Luxor attacks on tourism, or the Asian crisis, or the financial crisis, we saw the following year a significant spend on infrastructure and actually a construction boom. As recently as 08-09 was one of our strongest years in boosting infrastructure spending. So we expect this year, in the coming few months, a lot of activity on the infrastructure side.
So are you in a position to give us any guidance on the company's profits for the year?
I think this year will be a major improvement from previous year, on the back also of better performance on the fertilizer side.
Now, if we look at what's happening with your company, a lot of it, I think 70%, is now outside of Egypt itself, and yet we're also seeing instability throughout the region. What kind of concern does that give you, both personally and also in terms of the company?
I think we have to deal with the situation as it comes. There is a general democratization spree that is spreading in the Middle East. That will be painful in the short term, but definitely in the medium and the longer term, that will provide for a much more stable economy and a much better environment for investors with visibility.
Now, what would you say to foreign investors? Because some foreign investors who are obviously looking at the emerging markets and looking at the Middle East and thinking, oh, very lucrative, I'd like a piece of that. Then something like this happens, and it reminds people that emerging markets can be less stable. What would you say to foreign investors? Is now a good time to go into Egypt?
They have to also remember that thanks to this turmoil, we have $110 oil.
Indeed. And
the Middle East is blessed with a fair share of its oil reserves. So countries like Saudi Arabia just announced a $90 billion stimulus. That's partially a reflection of the turmoil, but partially also a reflection of enhanced liquidity from the increased oil price. So you can see the glass is half full, or the oil price contributing to a possible remedy for some of the unemployment and the situation that we're seeing in the Middle East.
When you look at what's happening in the Middle East at the moment, you sort of said earlier on that it's an inevitable process of democratization. Do you see it spreading throughout the Middle East, and is it something that we're going to see continuing for the rest of the year?
No, I think you can't say one size fits all. There are different causes of the problems in different places. There are some countries that have witnessed the protests 10 years ago, like Algeria 8 years ago, which have very little to worry about at this stage. Other countries have ethnic issues like Bahrain. So it's not really only about democratization.
Indeed. And as far as your company is concerned, your prospects seem to be looking good. Do you plan to expand further at this time?
We're expanding actually, and in the region in general and globally.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sawiris, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.